We are recording. So welcome everyone to Code and Coffee, excuse me, for July 11th, 2018. We are being recorded right now for preservation and educational purposes, and this will be available for viewing on our Facebook study group page as well as MilSpouseCoders.org. Today, our special guest is Ms. Stephanie Green. She's a front-end developer and IT analyst, and she is going to tell us a little about what she does and how she got there. If you have any questions for Stephanie, please type them in the chat window, and we'll make sure they get answered by the end of the presentation. We should have plenty of time at the end here to take any additional questions. Take it away, Stephanie.
Great, thank you. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and flip over to the presentation. Let's see, that's not it. Okay. All right, can you guys see it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, perfect. So thank you guys for having me. I'm just going to start with a little bit introduction of what we're going to cover today, my current position, how I got started, some of my education and training, a little bit of career advice, and then we can answer any questions that anyone has at the end. So for my current position, I am a federal contractor working for the General Services Administration's Technology Transformation Services in the innovation portfolio. So the portfolio has about a half dozen teams clustered in it. It covers digital.gov, innovation.gov, the US Web Design System, and a few others, and also challenge.gov and citizenscience.gov, which are the two teams that I work for. The majority of my teams the folks are based out of Washington, D.C. They work at headquarters for GSA. I telework from Fort Stewart, Georgia, but I do have to travel in pretty often. I go in at least once a week every quarter. And even though the rest of my team is pretty much in the D.C. area, they also do a lot of telework. They will travel into the headquarters building about twice a week. So it's nice. We all have a lot of remote interactions together. So it's not like a room full of people with me dialing in on the outside. So it's really nice. So I mentioned I work for two different programs. For citizenscience.gov, I do front-end development. We recently completed a migration for that website from WordPress over to Jekyll, which is a static site generator, and we're using a proprietary backend GSA. It's called Federalist. So I do basically all the updates and all the design and elements and everything technical for that website. So it's a lot of HTML and CSS. We use Git for version control. We do a lot with the accessibility testing, and accessibility is obviously really important. We adhere to the Section 508 standards. So I do all the testing and all the responsive design, and I'm a one-man show, I guess, for that program. For challenge.gov, the other team I work on, I serve more in an IT analyst role. So currently the platform we're using is WordPress. So I definitely am constantly updating plugins, do a lot of data management and user management. We have data calls that come out from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy and other agencies. So I serve a lot of the data regarding the challenges that are posted on our website. We have a lot of security controls that we have to follow. So I really have to closely monitor that all the updates that are coming out are getting pushed out. And then we have our back end, we have a server team that also pushes out a lot of those updates And then I also manage user accounts and pretty much anything else that they need there that's any type of a technically related. So how I got started, and I might flip them back and forth a little bit between how I got started in my education, so these sort of align. But how I got started in this field was that I was an Air Force reservist, and I met my husband, who was also in the Air Force at the time. And right when we got married, I was finishing up my first bachelor's degree, which was criminal justice. And then we started our own family and decided that the criminal justice field was not really for me. He decided to go active duty in the Army and was away a lot, worked really long hours. So after being a stay-at-home mom for almost 2 years, I decided I wanted to start my own business. And with that, I started it on Etsy. I don't know if some of you may have heard of the Etsy platform. It's sort of like you can post the goods you have for sale, and it has an online presence for small business owners. So I started out with an Etsy shop, and a lot longer on that path, I decided I finally wanted to get off of Etsy. My shop was really successful, and I wanted my own website. So that's sort of how I fell into all of this. I started a WordPress website for my business and did all my own design. I chose, some templates, and looking back on it, it was pretty terrible, but I really enjoyed the experience. And I kept making changes and learning more. And it really helped me decide that was really something that, I wanted to make a career out of. And then sort of with my education along with that path, in the middle there, I decided I wanted to go back to school, and I chose accounting as a degree, as a second bachelor's. I actually got a scholarship for that degree, and I chose accounting because it was really relevant at the time for me in running my business. I really enjoyed the numbers aspect of accounting. I really used that knowledge a lot with my business, but as I sort of transitioned out of that, I did not end up ever getting a full-time job with that degree. And I actually did try. It was pretty difficult to find a position. And I think as military spouses, we all probably come across these hurdles where you're responsible for your children and your spouses are away a lot. And just trying to find a position in a traditional 9-to-5 was really hard, and it didn't end up working out for me. So when I sort of fell into this WordPress and web development, it turned out to be great. It was something that I really enjoyed, and it was something that I knew I eventually could get, a remote position with. So I went back to school. I had a little bit of GI Bill left from when I was in the Air Force. So I went back to school for a Bachelor's of Science in Information Technology. I added on a certificate in web design and development from the University of Massachusetts. They have a great program there. And I was able to complete all of those classes online and finish out that degree. And when I started that degree, I really thought about the experience I had trying to get a job with my accounting degree, and had really decided from the beginning that I wanted to do an internship or an apprenticeship, and that I realized that was really key in trying to find a position after I finished school again. So right in the beginning, in my first semester when I went back to school for my IT degree, I was able to get an internship with the Challenge.gov team, one of the current teams I'm with now. And I did a 3-month internship with their program. It was such a great experience. And then I was also later on able to get an internship with the VA. And I would definitely recommend that to do an apprenticeship or an internship in the field to really get some experience and meet some great people. So those were really positive experiences for me. Again, with education now, I want to say that I did also do a lot of the self-taught, online resources, the Code Academy, Treehouse, Free Code Camp. Those were definitely all resources that I used along the way too. I also found those really helpful. So what I do each day, I do work for a government. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. John, I had a quick question. What was your internship process like?
The process of actually getting the internship?
Yes, just for the benefit of the group, just because they may not know when you go to apply for an internship what you have to do, because every place has different standards and all that jazz. So
yeah, absolutely. I got both of my internships through applications. The programs were posted on USA Jobs. So for the first one, I had to just send in my resume, upload it to the USA Jobs posting, and also had to include transcripts of, the courses I was taking at the time. And I was just, like I said, in my very first semester. And then for that internship, I actually had to travel to DC. We were living in North Carolina at the time. I traveled to DC for the interview, and then eventually, spent that 3 months in DC with the team. I brought my kids with me. I was just all in because I knew it was a really good opportunity. And then the same for my VA internship. It was also posted on USA Jobs, and it was a pretty quick process. My first internship was paid, and my second internship was unpaid. So with the paid position, I had to go through a little bit of a security clearance background check and a process of, getting an ID, getting a laptop. So that took a couple of months. But with the unpaid internship, it was really quick. Did that answer your question?
Oh, I think you did.
Okay.
That's good information.
All right. You did, yes. Yep.
Okay, thanks. So what do I do each day? I spend quite a bit of time in meetings, 3 to 4 hours during the busy period, which we're having a busy period right now. And when it's a bit more of a lull, more like 2 or 3, we do a lot of team meetings. I have at least 3 team huddles each week, so we can all sync up and figure out the plans of actions, and we all know what everyone else is doing. GSA is really great in the tools that they're able to use. They're really forward and really try to set a precedence in using great tools as compared to some other agencies. So we are able to use Google Hangouts for our video calls. We have a Gmail. We use the messaging, and we really try to keep most of our meetings video with screens on, just to have a little bit more of a connection with each other. Excuse my voice. So every day, I log on about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I usually can spend the first hour catching up on emails. We also use Slack as a communication tool. So I'll log into Slack, check all the rooms, see what's going on, write down a list of everything I am planning on getting accomplished that day, or everything that I need to talk about or bring up in meetings. So like, for instance, right now for citizen science, we're building out a new catalog of projects. So we have a list of action items that we're going through, and we talk about a lot, integrating search and different filters, changing around the sizing and the logo placement. So I spend a lot of time on that front-end development side right now. And then for the challenge side, I'm doing a lot of data and analytics right now. So I spend about the first hour of my day checking emails and Slack and catching up on everything. Usually I have meetings start around 10 o'clock. I do try to block out an hour for lunch every day because it gets really crazy, and sometimes you have to block out the time in your calendar to be able to get a lunch. And I think it's important to be able to take some time out and sort of clear your mind and refresh yourself when you have a lot of stressful things going on. So I really do try to take that time every day at lunch. And then we'll have some more afternoon meetings. I'll try to block out a couple of hours to get some actual coding done. And my day lasts till 5. So usually we won't have any meetings after 4. I also do have a summer intern. She's also in Washington, D.C. and meets regularly with the team. So I'm also blocking out for the summer time to write training for her. She is going into her junior year in a cybersecurity program, and we're right now covering Git and version control, and we're showing her how she can download our open source repo and make contributions. So that's really fun and something I really enjoy. Current training. This is a good one. Definitely trying to stay current is really important. Try to go to conferences. So for me, I'm actually going to be in DC at the end of this month, and I'm really happy to be able to go to my first Event Apart conference. There's some really great speakers there. So definitely, if you can have a chance to go to any conferences, go for it. Even if it's something that you don't feel like you know yet and you want to learn more about, I think those are great opportunities. I'm also taking a Code Academy intensive course about building APIs. So I'm just trying to develop that skill, and I might be a little bit behind on it, but I definitely try to work it in a few evenings a week, and I'm hoping to be able to complete a project with that pretty soon. Another resource that I use a lot is actually digital.gov. They have some really amazing webinars that they put on. For instance, we had Brad Frost talk about design systems a few weeks ago. Steve Krug also came on and talked about user experience and usability. Those are events that you can only sign up for if you have a .gov or .mil email address. But you can actually watch the recording. It's available on their YouTube channel to anyone. So I think that's a great resource for anyone to check out. And then career advice. Oh, this is a good one. I'm sure that probably a lot of us have heard the create your own portfolio one a lot, but I really do think it's important to have a presence when you're putting out resumes. Looking at a resume on a piece of paper and then actually being able to go to someone's website and see the work they've done, it makes a big difference. And I know that a lot of people I've talked to, they put a lot of importance in having that portfolio. It really, to be able, especially if you have it on GitHub, to where, folks can come and look at your code and see, is your code clean? Does it make sense? The way that you lay it out, it's important. And then I definitely recommend attending meetups. Getting out and meeting people is really important. And I know for a lot of the folks that are around me that I work with, a lot of folks actually make recommendations to people for new positions about just some folks that they've met being out at conferences and meetups. So I think it's really important to get out there and rub elbows and figure out what everybody else is doing. And it's fun. And then definitely also, like we talked about, try to attend a conference to make connections. And it's great to find other people that you are friends with that maybe you could reach out if you have a question, or maybe if they have a job that's like the opposite of yours. If you're a developer and they're a designer, maybe you need a little bit of design help on something. It's really good to have those connections and be able to reach out to someone that you have actually met in person and maybe sat down and had a conversation with. And then also in that, developing soft skills is really important. And I think that it really goes hand in hand with attending meetups and conferences. Being able to really communicate and not always speaking in technical jargon is really important. I know especially in the work that I do, I'm the most technical person on both of my teams. So really being able to try to break things down and explain them to everyone else in a way that they can understand. And it's not just, doesn't sound like, a mess to them. It's really important. And those skills can really be developed at the meetups and conferences too. And then definitely working on critical thinking and try to develop your own leadership skills. I know a lot of meetups where they do lightning talks. So if you want to try and become a speaker and share your knowledge, meetups are a really great opportunity to sort of start getting yourself out there and developing those skills. And then maybe you can be a speaker at a conference some way. I think that would be really great for everyone to try that out if they feel comfortable with it. And then questions. I can't see the chat on this screen, so I might just close out from the screen share. Does that sound okay?
That sounds good. I do have a couple questions for you as we went along. Working from home, you have kids, you have pets. Do you ever find yourself distracted or pulled away from your work that you need to get done?
That's a really good question. And yes, constantly. My boys are 9 and 11, so they're usually at school. So really, and they're at camp right now from 9 to 3. So when they're gone, I hit it hard. I am focused. I'm trying to get every possible thing done that I can get done. And then when they're home, absolutely, I get interrupted a ton. But it's sort of just something that you have to get used to or deal with. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. I absolutely love when school's in session. And yes, sometimes I get really frustrated with the dog wanting to go back out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely not easy. It's something you just have to find your style and figure out when you can put your head down and get like a chunk of something done for sure.
Has it made like family life a little more flexible in that matter, especially with duty station changes, moving? For me, my move a year ago, I gave up my job and I'm currently unemployed. So, if you were to move, you're a lot more flexible, and especially with military spouses. We go every 4 years if we're lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very thankful to be able to have this position and be able to not worry about taking it with me. I know it'll go with me, even if I have to adjust to my schedule to the time zones. We might get stationed out on the West Coast and be in a different time zone than this position, but I could, just adjust my schedule and carry on. It's nice not to have that stressor and have to think about that.
Anybody else have any other questions for Stephanie?
Let's see what else is on. Let's find out.
I got something here.
Jen's here now. Okay.
Yeah, I think we had a few people jump in at the end. If you want to, unmute your mic, you may definitely go ahead and do that and ask us questions, or even just jump on the chat and type something in if you have any questions for Stephanie. While we've got her, because I know she's got work she's got to get done today.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. Any other questions I have here?
I see one on the chat.
It's from MJ.
Do you have to be creative to be a web developer? That's a really good question. I'd say no, you don't have to be creative to be a developer. If you decide that you want to be a designer, then yes, you'll have to have a creative bone in your body for that. But I think for being a developer, I think it's really important to just be able to have those critical thinking skills and be able to face a project and break it down into the steps that need to be done, and then really think about how you can create that. So like when I'm doing front-end design, you're adding the styles, and I don't have a designer, and a lot of people have a designer, that will create that for them. But I pull from the US Web Design System, which is sort of like Bootstrap. So a lot of that, design component is already there. They want all the buttons to be this shape, or you just pick a color. So I don't say that inherently, no, you don't have to be creative to do web development. You're welcome.
See, anybody else have any questions?
Stephanie, would you feel comfortable sharing your portfolio, your personal portfolio or your LinkedIn to the group?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I have not updated my portfolio in a while, probably. Just sharing that.
Yeah. You usually don't update it until you're looking for a job.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, pretty shy on
Yeah,
projects.
you could either email it to Carly or post it in our chat window. I noticed that too. Like,
Sure.
I don't update my portfolio at all unless I finished a project that I liked that I want to feature, but I almost never update it. And I was like, oh, maybe I try to put a reminder on my calendar, like every quarter, go back and look at it and like take something out or add something in, but then I still don't do it. So I totally hear you about it being old and outdated.
Yeah.
So I've heard people who, after they get their jobs, they just kind of neglect it, which is okay for them, at least just anecdotally. Like people are like, after that, it's just talking with your coworkers and your friends, and then like, okay, cool, so we know what you're about. So your portfolio really is your initial way in. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, definitely. I can't say that anyone's ever asked me to see my portfolio, besides in a job interview type situation, for sure.
Like I still actually get emails, even though my portfolio is outdated. I get emails through my contact form saying, "Hey, are you available for work?" And I'm always like, no. I'm like, sorry, no. But it's nice if you have a nice portfolio that like people will find you and you're like, oh, I totally forgot about this. I'm getting emails through this. Oh, sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually, Stephanie is correct about your resume. You could take as many courses as you want, but unless you build stuff and put it in a portfolio where people can access online, it's a world of difference. And some people are like, I liked this specific website. And I'm like, what was this about? And I'm like, oh, I found a cute puppy picture and I built a website around it. Like random things. I'm like, okay, that's weird. All right, sure. So I encourage you guys, build, put it in your portfolio. Always list the technologies that you used, languages that you used, if you used a framework. And this is a really good case study. So let's say you're brand new and you maybe only done 2 or 3 projects. You don't need to put 6 to 9 because it's almost overkill. But if you have really solid projects, 3, let's just say 3, each project that you do, spend a lot of time on it, have really good screenshots, have really good GIFs of like how to interact with it. This is a challenge. People love this. And then I don't have this online, but I love it when I see it. This is a challenge I came across in this project. This is how I fixed it, and then write a blog post and link it to your project.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I would definitely like to see examples of, because I've never even looked at a portfolio other than GitHub. Like I'm looking at what John's got on his Git, and per him, I said, oh, he's got a nice little graphic on for his person. I was like, okay, I'm going to create a little graphic for my person too, to give myself my little symbol of identification. So I would love to see anything that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Your own project, saying like, this is something that I had a problem with in my project. This is how I solved it, and this is the end result. So it shows them you can work through a project even if you have a roadblock, you take the time to research it. You could put, I use Stack Overflow, and I had to install so many libraries. I had to take out a library because it's not compatible with this program I was using. So walk through your method of when you do a project. And it's really impressive. Like I saw one and I'm like, wow, I don't have time to do that, but I was super impressed. I was like, oh, I like this person. So those are
another caveat too with that, which will help you in the interview. So by doing that and having at least those three, it'll give you an easy way to talk about your project so that when you're on the fly there and they're like, so tell me about your project, you can just pretty much ad-lib what you wrote on your blog post. So you don't have
exactly.
to
I feel like that's a frequent interview question too. Like, okay,
Yeah.
what was the challenge you faced? So
Yes.
I think, yeah, that's great advice to have already.
Mm-hmm.
We should create a document with interview questions, and this will be another code and coffee.
Yeah.
Interview question, code and coffee.
That's a question I always get.
Yeah.
Like, what's a problem in your project and how did you solve it? And so I actually create a gist of my GitHub code, and I kind of break down everything, and then I submit it, and I show them like, okay, this is the end result I wanted. I was having trouble with this, and then this is how I went around it and got it to work. So, and then people are like, oh, wow, like, so that's a really good way to answer that question in an interview. Like create a secret gist and then send it to your interviewer saying they can look at your GitHub, but it's not laid out nicely. It's not laid out like, it's just this bunch of code in different folders, you know what I mean? Yeah. Unless you have a really good README. Oh, and that's another thing I recommend. Your README in your project should be like really, really good, extremely detailed, hyperlinked on how to install. Because I had a project on my GitHub and people kept on saying they didn't know how to use Python. So I was like, oh, and they didn't know how to create a database. And I'm like, oh, I had the assumption that you know how to use Python and you know how to be a super user and you don't know how to do that. Okay, but you forked my project and you don't know how to use any of it. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I had a installation and like, you need to create a database and so. And I'm like, oh, and someone else had chimed in like, you need to create a database, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I should add that to my README because people didn't know how to use it properly to create a database. So it was nice that someone else had chimed in to answer. I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize. You don't realize what people don't know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And that's where the gifts come in, because actually you could make it easier on yourself and not have to write it up. Because I know people are better at showing than writing out and saying, okay, well, this, and this, but it'll be so much faster too. Or I don't know now because I haven't posted anything on GIF in a while, but you could probably do a quick video and actually do it that way and just talk about it. And we'll
yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really great way. That's how a lot of people get jobs through their YouTube channel. Just them showing that they can explain things.
Yeah.
In a layman's
Those
terms.
soft skills, that's really important. Yeah.
Yes.
That's I know personally that's one thing I experienced back when I worked in televisions. If I couldn't explain what was going on technically to the non-technical people, it was a waste of everybody's time. You've got to be able to communicate those ideas, like Stephanie said, in layman's terms, simplify it, make it understandable. And one day I explained, so this is why this can't be done, because this technology is not where it needs to be. We are unequipped. And then my news director said, you know what, you are the first director I've ever had that actually explained something successfully to me, and I understood it. So now I finally know why we cannot do this, because they never really understood why. They wanted to do it, but they didn't know why. So being able to communicate the technical jargon in English to others is extremely important. Stephanie, I do have a question for you. You were mentioning USA Jobs, and previously before we started, you were talking. I mentioned internships, and you said that USA there are a lot of internships available. How easy? Because I've tried to get a job through USA Jobs before, and the thing with search engine jobs, they tend to I never got any feedback. I never actually got the job the jobs I was trying to get, or any job through USA Jobs. How you said that you got response pretty quickly. Is that something you've noticed a lot with individuals who apply for those internships?
No, I have to say that's you're usually playing a pretty good waiting game. I think I got lucky with that first position that I applied for because it was already coming up, on summer. So they put that position description out pretty late. I needed to fill it pretty quickly. So for that position, it did move along, I think, quicker than most. I definitely think with applying to anything on USA Jobs, you have to be patient and you're going to get a lot of misses. I cannot even count how many things that I've applied for through USA Jobs. And I always look for the ones that have veterans preference and spouse preference and any way I can get, an extra foot in the door. But it's definitely not easy. But I would say don't let that be discouraging. So many people apply to different things on USA Jobs. Just keep at it for sure.
Do you have any other sites or organizations that you've used or that you know of people that using in terms of getting internships or something like that? That's out there.
I can't think of anything. I mean, that's the number one for me. And then I also, hit up Indeed.com a lot. I think they're really good. They aggregate a lot of the other feeds. And then I know for anyone in the Dayton, Ohio area, there is a web design agency called Sparkbox. They do apprenticeships every year, and they're really great to work for. And I think that's good to look for different businesses or web design agencies in your area that do development also. And I know it seems to be really popular. I think people are starting to embrace that internship, apprenticeship is important. And I know just check around your area, figure out what agencies are there and see if they have any programs. I think a lot do these days.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? Nothing? All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending today's Code and Coffee. We are very glad you were able to make it. And a big thank you to Stephanie for taking time out of her very busy day in order to give us some advice and teach us about what it is she does and how she got there. We appreciate that, of course. If anybody has any questions later on, you come up with anything, please feel free to message me through Facebook or even on the event thread for today's event. And we will make sure Stephanie gets those questions, get those answered for you. So thanks again.
No problem.
And I wanted to do some quick real business matters, just group-wise since people are here. We are still taking applications for the ticket and hotel giveaway to the Swift by Northwest Conference in Portland, Oregon, October 18th through 20th. Swift by Northwest is a 3-day technical training conference for Swift developers, and will have numerous sessions on cutting-edge Swift, iOS, and Mac OS development topics. We have been given 2 tickets valued at $700, which can be put towards the cost of the conference and hotel ticket combo. So your hotel and the conference ticket would be paid for. All you have to do is get yourself there. In addition, the ticket includes meals, snacks, and beverages. They want to feed you so you can keep learning. Let's see. They're going to have swag, and looks like based on their website, they're going to have some prizes as well. So we're going to make sure the application is still available on the study group page. So if anybody wants to apply, please do that. There are some little stipulations at the end. You want to make sure you can share your experience with everyone in the group if you go. Now, lastly, we are going to be doing a t-shirt fundraiser to try to raise money for the organization, and especially for the October 13th hackathon, which is going to be in Virginia and online. In Virginia, right? Get that right. And in addition to increasing funds for whatever it's conference tickets or boot camp programs for our spouses here in our group. Anybody interested in possibly ordering a t-shirt, something maybe funny, witty on the front, on the back, MilSpouse Coder logo? Would you like to have multiple options to choose from, or is just one option easier for you? Or how much, and most importantly, how much would you be willing to spend on a t-shirt? Is $30 too much? Would you rather go 20? Anybody have any questions, opinions, thoughts, concerns?
I don't think 30 is too much. I would, at that price, I would buy one. If it were lower, about $20, I probably would buy more than one if there were multiple designs.
Okay.
in my opinion. Yeah. I really think that t-shirt blank is so important too. Like, are there women's sizes offered?
Mhm.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. I think for one of the sites we're looking at, it's going to be just like a unisex tee. Like me, I live in t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
That's if I could go to work in a t-shirt, I would be happy.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anyone? Looking at the chat window. No?
Yeah, this is my opinion on t-shirts.
What is that?
Is that Jen? Is that you?
I'm not on video.
Are you in slow motion?
It's not.
I think that's it, right, Jen?
All right, she'll talk about it later on the Slack channel.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Have a
Thanks.
wonderful day. Happy coding.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay.
We're done.